Hi and welcome to the Mathemagic channel. Today we look at quadratic equations. This is an intro and it'll be part of a long series of videos with lots and lots of different topics covered. So make sure that you watch the whole series if you really want to get the detail about how we solve quadratic equations. Hopefully this will help you a lot. Let's jump in. So first of all, what is a quadratic equation? Well, a quadratic equation is an equation written as y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Ooh, that looks really scary because it's got an x squared in it. Now, we used to learn equations of lines, linear equations, and now we're graduating to equations of curves. And what kind of curve are we looking at? Well, we're looking at this kind of U-shaped curve, which is actually called a parabola. And there it goes. Ooh. And so what is a parabola? Well, just like we looked at, it's a symmetrical shape that looks like an umbrella. So here's a parabola, and this is what it looks like. And here's an umbrella upside down. And so it looks a little bit similar. Now, when we say symmetrical, notice I've drawn an axis of symmetry for you guys here. It means that the values are perfectly reflected on each side. So this will become important later on, especially when we think about that minimum point down there. So how do we deal with those? Okay, so first of all, we have to figure if it's facing up or facing down. Like, is it a happy face parabola or is it a sad face parabola? Is it an umbrella that you're holding up or an umbrella that's upside down? So the value that's going to be important here is the a value, and the a value is found in front of x squared. So remember, your quadratic is y equals ax squared, so something in front of x squared, plus bx, something in front of x, plus a c value. So in considering whether it's facing up or facing down, we're going to look at the value in front of x squared. And so here there's a red curve, and we notice that the value in front of x squared is 1. Well, we don't actually see it, but we see that it's 1x squared. And so the a value is positive, and we have this kind of facing up smiley face parabola. And in the blue curve, we notice is written negative 2x squared minus 5x plus 7, and the a is negative 2. And so because the a is negative 2, notice that this is what we call concave down. It's a parabola which is a sad face, and we notice that it's facing down. So the a value is going to let you know immediately if you have a parabola which is facing up or parabola which is facing down. So you should pay attention to that. And so this is when a is negative. Okay, what's next? Well, there are 4 key values to notice on any quadratic. So here's a quadratic, y equals x squared minus 5x minus 6, and you'll notice that there are 4 points outlined here. And the first point on the left, which is the intersection of the red curve and the x-axis, is what we call the x-intercept. And this is a pretty big deal. We're going to be looking in detail at how we find those. And notice on the right-hand side, we have another intersection with the x-axis because the curve crosses the x-axis twice since it's symmetrical. Now, not all parabolas are going to cross the x-axis. Some of them might be above the x-axis and not cross at all. But in this case, it does, and it crosses twice. So we call this the first x-intercept and the second x-intercept. Notice we also cross the y-axis. And the y-axis here is going to be called a y-intercept. Now notice this is exactly the same as when you were studying linear equations, and linear equations when the form y equals ax plus b or mx plus c. And they were crossing the y-intercept at the b or the c value when x is equal to 0. So this is going to be a pretty important point here, and you'll be able to find that value very quickly. A value that's going to be important as well is the minimum point. Now this becomes important in optimization problems. It could be a maximum point or it could be a minimum point. And if you were to model something with a quadratic equation, it might be important to know when you reach like a minimum amount of profit or a maximum amount of profit, or when something reaches a maximum size or a minimum size. And so finding the minimum or the maximum value can be really important. I'd like you to notice that the minimum value, which we call the vertex, is exactly in between the curve. So because it's a symmetrical shape, it's right in the middle of your umbrella smiley face curve. So how do we find all these values, these 4 key values, which we're going to try and find? Well, the y-intercept is the easiest one to find out of your 4 key values because it is the c value. Simply put, if you have y equals x squared minus 5x minus 6, the negative 6 is going to be your y-intercept. And you can see that on the red curve right here. So the y-intercept is just the c value. Now, this is because when x is 0, you will have 0 squared minus 5 times 0 minus 6, which is negative 6. So because when x is 0, y equals negative 6. Okay, so what about the other values? Well, since this is an introduction, we're not going to cover those right now, so watch the next video. Thank you so much. See you next time.